The roar of engines echoed through the quiet town of Iron Creek, announcing the arrival of the Hells Angels. Chrome flashed in the afternoon sun, their leather jackets heavy with patches, their faces etched by years on the road. Inside the local diner, a hush fell. Conversations died, forks hung in midair, but one person wasn't intimidated. A little girl with bright, curious eyes and a smile stained with ice cream. Her name was Emily Grace, and to her, these men weren't dangerous. They were knights in leather and steel. She broke free from her mother's hand, her tiny shoes tapping across the parking lot until she stood before the biggest biker of them all. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a silver-streaked beard and arms covered in scars and ink. The world knew him as Wolf. But right then, he was just Ryder Kane, laughing with his brothers, a sound that masked old memories. Then he heard her voice. Soft, clear, and impossibly innocent. "Hello, sir," she said. "My mommy has a tattoo just like yours." Wolf's laughter caught in his throat. He turned, and the child pointed to his forearm, to a single delicate rose tattoo with a name woven into its stem. Anna Grace. The world tilted. The name was a ghost from a past he'd tried to outrun. He looked up just as a woman rushed toward them. Her long brown hair, her frantic eyes avoiding his. Sarah Grace. For the first time in a decade, Wolf's chest ached with something colder than regret. Sarah's voice trembled as she grabbed her daughter's hand. "Come on, Emily," she whispered. "We need to go." But Wolf was frozen, watching them leave. The little girl glanced back, her smile cutting deeper than any knife. The name on his arm burned like fresh ink. He had thought he'd found peace on the road. But in that moment, he knew whatever peace he had was gone. The next morning, Wolf sat outside the clubhouse, a cigarette smoldering between his fingers. The usual laughter of his brothers felt distant. His mind was stuck on repeat. The little girl's voice, her smile, the name she spoke. "My mommy has a tattoo just like yours." It couldn't be. Anna Grace was dead. He'd buried her memory under thousands of miles of asphalt, drowned it in every bottle. But a child's words had resurrected the past. Diesel, his closest brother, broke the silence. "You look like you seen a ghost, old man." "Maybe I did," Wolf muttered. Diesel's usual smirk vanished when he saw the raw pain in Wolf's eyes. "Talk to me." Wolf hesitated, then the name tumbled out, thick with emotions he hadn't felt in years. "Sarah Grace," Diesel frowned. "Grace, wait. As in?" "Anna's sister," Wolf finished. "And the girl, Emily. She said her mother has a tattoo just like mine." Diesel let out a low whistle. "Damn." He leaned back, the gears turning. "You think—" "I don't know what to think," Wolf confessed, his hands trembling. "But that girl, she's got Anna's eyes. The same color, the same spark. I saw it." The hum of the highway was a constant reminder of the life they lived, always moving forward, never looking back. But some ghosts refused to stay buried. Diesel finally broke the silence. "If that kid's who you think she is, you have a right to know. Maybe it's time you stop running from the past." Wolf didn't answer. He just stared at the setting sun, a flicker of hope, sharp and painful, igniting in his chest. He stood up, his shadow stretching long in the fading light. "If she's mine to protect, I'll find out, one way or another." The engine of his bike roared to life, a sound of defiance and destiny. The truth was waiting for him down the road, and Wolf knew it would change everything. Night fell over Iron Creek. Wolf rode alone, the steady pulse of his Harley a mirror of his own haunted heart. The road led him to a small white house near an old bridge, a place frozen in time. He cut the engine and watched from a distance. Through the window, he saw Sarah, her face tired under the warm glow of a lamp. Beside her, Emily was coloring, her quiet laughter a sound that tore him apart. He walked up the gravel path, his heart pounding. When Sarah saw him at the door, she froze. The past had come knocking, dressed in leather and regret. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice a mix of fear and anger. "I just need to talk," Wolf said softly. 5 minutes. She glanced toward Emily's room before stepping outside, closing the door behind her. The night air was thick with everything they'd left unsaid. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. "I had to," he replied, his voice tight. "That girl, Emily. She mentioned your tattoo. I need to know, Sarah. Is she—" Sarah looked away, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "She's my daughter," she said quietly. "And Anna's blood runs through her. You were right." The truth hit him like a physical blow. 1,000 questions burned in his throat, but no words came out. "I didn't tell anyone," Sarah continued, her voice trembling but firm. "After Anna died, I left it all behind. The club, the danger, the pain. I couldn't let Emily grow up in that world. I had to protect her." Wolf nodded, a deep ache of understanding in his chest. "I'm not here to drag her into that life. I just needed to know she's real, that something good came from all that loss." For the first time, Sarah's expression softened. "She's real," she said. "And she deserves a life far away from the road that took her mother." Wolf took a deep breath and stepped back toward his bike. "Then that's what I'll make sure of." As he rode off into the night, Sarah watched from the porch, her heart heavy, but for the first time, strangely at peace. The past had finally come calling, but it no longer felt like a curse. It felt like a beginning. Days bled into a tense, unspoken quiet. Wolf couldn't escape the memory of Emily's face, the same light in her eyes that Anna once had. Every single night, he'd ride past that old white house, headlights cut, a silent guardian watching from the shadows. He told himself he was just making sure they were safe, but he knew it was more than that. For years, he'd run from ghosts, and now here he was, haunting the living. Diesel saw the change. The unshakable Wolf was different, more distant. One evening, as the guys shot pool at the clubhouse, Diesel cornered him. "You've been disappearing a lot," he said, his voice firm but fair. "You found her, didn't you?" Wolf didn't even try to deny it. He just nodded, his gaze lost in the bottle in his hand. Diesel let out a long breath, rubbing the back of his neck. "So, it's true. The kid's Anna's." Wolf nodded again. "Yeah, her name's Emily. She's got her mother's laugh." His voice cracked, a sound so raw Diesel had never heard it from him before. "You gonna tell the others?" Diesel asked gently. "Not yet," Wolf said. "She has a good life. Her mom's keeping her safe. I don't want to screw that up." Diesel stared at him for a long moment, then leaned in close. "You know, brother, family isn't just who rides beside you. Sometimes it's who you protect, even if they never know your name." Those words hit Wolf hard. That night, he gathered a few of the brothers. They rode quietly to Sarah's house, not for a confrontation, but to help. Without a word to her, they fixed the sagging fence, replaced the rusted mailbox, and even left a basket of groceries on the porch before dawn broke. It wasn't charity. It was penance. At sunrise, Sarah found the quiet repairs. She knew who it was. The faint scent of gasoline, the distant rumble of engines fading away. That evening, when Wolf appeared at her gate, she didn't turn him away. She handed him a cup of coffee and said softly, "You didn't have to do that." "I did," Wolf replied. "I couldn't save Anna, but I can make sure her family's safe." For the first time, Sarah looked at him without a trace of fear. There was gratitude in her eyes, cautious, but real. From inside, Emily's laughter drifted through the open window, pure and happy. Wolf closed his eyes, just listening, letting the sound fill the empty spaces inside him. As he got on his bike to leave, Sarah called out, "Thank you, Ryder." He managed a small smile under the engine's roar. "You can call me Wolf," he said. "Everyone else does." But as he rode into the twilight, he knew. To that little girl, he'd be something else entirely. Not a biker, not a sinner. Maybe, one day, just family. A week later, the storm hit. It was sudden and violent, the wind howling through Iron Creek, tearing the town apart. Wolf was at the garage when Diesel called. "Power's out everywhere," Diesel's voice crackled. "You good?" Wolf's answer was swallowed by thunder, but his mind wasn't on himself. It was on Sarah and Emily. An instinct, sharp and familiar, twisted in his gut. He grabbed his jacket, kicked his bike to life, and raced into the storm. Rain hammered his face, the road a slick black ribbon. He rode on memory alone, guided by flashes of lightning over the hills. When he reached the White House, the front door was swinging wildly in the wind. Panic seized him. "Sarah!" he yelled, running up the porch steps. She stumbled out, drenched and frantic. "She's gone, Ryder. Emily's gone." For a single horrifying second, the world stopped. Then, Wolf moved. "Where?" "She was playing by the tree before the rain started," Sarah cried. "I turned for 1 second. She ran toward the woods. Just then, Diesel's bike roared up. 2 more angels right behind him, their headlights slicing through the chaos. No orders were needed. They fanned out, their flashlights and voices cutting into the darkness. The woods were a nightmare of mud and shadows, but Wolf pushed deeper, screaming her name until his throat was raw. "Emily! Emily, answer me!" Lightning flashed, and in that split second he saw her. She was curled beneath a fallen branch, shivering, clutching a stuffed bear. Wolf fell to his knees, his heart pounding against his ribs. "Hey, sweetheart," he whispered, his voice shaking as he lifted the branch and pulled her into his arms. "You're safe now." Emily blinked up at him, tears and rain on her face. "I was scared, Uncle Wolf." Uncle Wolf. The words hit him like the sun breaking through the clouds. He held her tighter, shielding her from the storm as the others found them. Diesel let out a breath of pure relief. Back at the house, Sarah ran to them, sobbing as she pulled Emily into her arms. Wolf stood back, soaked and silent, the weight of the night settling into him. Sarah looked up, her eyes filled with something deeper than gratitude. It was trust. "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved her." Wolf slowly shook his head. "No," he said, his voice quiet but sure. "She saved me." The storm finally broke, the rain softening to a murmur. As the angels rode off at dawn, Wolf lingered, watching the sun rise over Iron Creek. For the first time in years, the road ahead didn't feel empty. It felt like a beginning. Weeks passed. The memory of the storm softened into something almost sacred. The story of how the Hells Angels tore through the night for a missing girl spread through Iron Creek. For once, people didn't whisper in fear when they heard the engines. They nodded. Some even waved. But for Wolf, none of that mattered. What stuck with him was that small voice in the dark, calling him Uncle Wolf. He'd always thought men like him didn't get second chances. The road was his confession, the wind his only forgiveness. But somehow, life had given him one. A little girl who saw past the scars and the leather, who smiled at him like he was already forgiven. He started visiting more, never staying too long, never pushing. He'd fix a broken step or tune up the old truck. He'd bring Emily a small gift from his rides, a smooth stone from a mountain pass, a keychain from a town she'd never seen. Each one was a quiet promise. Sarah watched it all with a cautious hope. The fear that once hardened her was softening. Sometimes they'd just sit on the porch while Emily played, and for a few minutes, the world felt whole. He'd talk about Anna, but only when Sarah asked, and each story became a thread, weaving old wounds into something new. One afternoon, the club rode into town for a charity event. Bikes lined the street, engines rumbling. Emily stood beside Wolf, wearing a tiny leather jacket Diesel had found for her, a patch on the back reading "Little Angel." She giggled as Wolf lifted her onto his bike for a short ride around the block. The crowd that once avoided the angels now clapped and cheered. When they returned, Sarah was waiting, her eyes bright with pride. "She loves being around you," she said. "You make her feel safe." Wolf looked at her, his voice low and sincere. "She makes me feel human." The words hung between them, heavy with truth. For the first time, Sarah didn't look away. She reached out, her hand gently brushing his arm, right above the rose tattoo with Anna's name. "You already were, Ryder," she said softly. "You just forgot." That evening, as the sun set, the angels rode out again. Emily stood on the porch, waving, her little jacket gleaming in the last light. Wolf glanced back one final time before the road claimed him. And for the first time in a long, long while, he wasn't running from his past. He was riding towards something worth staying for.